You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
All right, what's going on? It's Nick Alberga Jay Rosehill, the Tuesday edition of Leafs Morning Take. What's going on, Rosie?
Not a lot, just in a holding pattern around here, man.
Yeah, pretty much. And I won't lie, the complaining out of Boston is so ironic for so many reasons. Did you catch the latest? Don Sweeney, the GM, spoke yesterday.
No, what's he saying?
Oh, it was just like a whole thing. I think it's perfect for Boston because you lose sight of the fact that they're down 3-1 in the series without Brad Marchand, their captain. But essentially, he wants refs to be in front of the mics to answer questions. Do you like that? Because that's been a big story in that series, obviously officiating and reviewing some of the hits in the series.
I always thought that it'd be interesting to get their side of the story. Like, what did they see on that? What was their reasoning for something? The NHL has had it is 100% closed door, not a chance, has kind of been the MO forever. I don't know what you would solve with getting there. Like, maybe I bet you sometimes they would like to speak, but they can't. And on the other hand, sometimes fans would like to hear what they were thinking. But once a call's made and the game's over, I can't see any benefit to going to the officials and saying anything, whether it's anything. If you want to go talk to them, it's because there was something controversial. I don't see that happening at any point in time, but it's definitely crossed my mind before. I just don't see any reason why the NHL would say, yeah, let's do this. I don't, not for a chance.
No, I can't see the NHL agreeing to take part in something like this. I understand why more and more people around the league, fans and everybody alike, would like the NHL to make a determination one way or another what they're going to do with officiating. But it feels like a yearly tradition where it's like bash on the NHL refs. I just don't know where we go from here. Like, are we headed towards robots calling the game?
Well, we talked about it on Department of Discipline there. It's like, I feel like they all do this for a living. They get paid well. It's kind of it's like their only job, and they have time in the summer. I would like to know, should they have camps and summits or whatever where they all get together and take your pick? I don't care where. And they have, camps or classes, and they show thousands of clips of NHL plays and calls, and this is what we want to clamp down on. This is what we're trying to get out of the game, and this is the stuff, this ticky-tack stuff. This is all right now, and just get the culture on the same page so that officials understand, yes, this is where we're trying to go with the game. This is what they want called. This is what they don't want called. This is what gets us in trouble. This is what fires the fans up the most. These are the type of things that we don't want deciding the hockey game. And then you go into the season with that knowledge where everyone's on the same page. It just makes sense to me, because I feel like when I'm watching, it's like, I don't feel like, obviously there's individuals and different people, different looks at it and different opinions is fine. But when you look at some of the calls and stuff, it's like, why did this guy call that? And why did this guy not call that? And it just doesn't seem like they're on the same page.
Rose, you got a big question for you. Speaking of the same page, how many strikes and a strikeout?
How many strikes in a strikeout? There's
Three.
strikes.
There's the answer I was looking for. What I was getting to was Valeri Nichushkin. You had to have some thoughts on Valeri Nichushkin, right? Because it's 3 strikes, you're out, in my opinion. He's been suspended for 6 months. And most importantly, I think you look at some of the comments of his teammates post-game after they were drubbed by Dallas last night. It is not a good look for Valeri Nichushkin right now.
Yeah, and normally if a guy goes and gets help and, has a problem with drugs or alcohol, you wish him the best and you hope that he gets on it. But it seems like this is not as sympathetic of a story, based on the comments by people and his peers and his teammates. It seems like this guy just chooses to go do whatever, and put his team at risk. And now, he's a good enough player where without him, it's a massive blow. And no pun intended, but it sounds like,
oh God,
it sounds like that he's kind of just being an idiot and choosing partying and drugs and alcohol over, at this time of the year. Man, everyone, I'm all about having a good time and going out for some beers and whatever, and maybe pushing the limits of curfew and that type of thing. But like in the middle of a playoff run, the second round, you're trying to get to the finals, the Eastern finals, Western finals, sorry, and you're out getting busted for drugs and piss tests, and it's like, come on, man, like where's your head at? And whether he does need help or I hope he gets it, but it's a bad look. And honestly, normally I'd be like, well, these things happen, but when his teammates are just like, we're done with him, that's all I'll say, or like he's made his decision, his name bar is yanked off the team wall and stuff, rather than guys like rallying behind him saying, I know he needs help, is pretty telling.
I'm like the opposite. I think he should party harder considering the way he's been playing. Like, I know it's a joke, but dude, the guy had 9 goals in the postseason. Like that's the big story for me, is like this guy at the time of suspension was the leading scorer in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Just think about that. And then you couple that with the way they came out. I mean, they were so deflated. I know Devon Toews missed a game due to illness, but I haven't seen Colorado play that defeated in years. I could only wonder the ripple effect in that room, especially how often do we talk about leadership on this podcast? And you look at one of the best leaders in the game right now. I know he's not the captain, but Nathan MacKinnon. I don't think that type of activity is acceptable in any room, especially for a third time, especially in the heat of another Stanley Cup playoff run. I could only imagine how Nathan MacKinnon took the news,
Oh, I bet he was pissed. I mean, he's he's known to be the type of leader that like expects like perfection, expects
Demands
everything
it.
to be done right from your sleep to your uh nutrition and all that kind of stuff. He's pretty hardcore on that, and he's like a pure leader and a pure winner, and that's all he cares about. So to have a guy that's just complete opposite of that is probably, there's some friction there, I'm sure. But like you say, it's the leading score and how much production he's put up in the playoffs is just a massive blow. And I can't really think of a time where a guy that's at that level of playoff hockey just gets yanked off the team for like extracurricular stuff. Um, some people might be of the ilk of, hey, let him do what he wants. He's lighting it up. Let him go do whatever the hell he wants on his own time. He's a grown man, but you can't be doing whatever he's doing to the point where the NHL and NHLPA have to step in, and it's obviously overboard. So I don't know. It just sucks that a guy's priorities are that buggered up.
You watched that during the pandemic, the Chicago Bulls documentary, right?
Yeah.
Dennis Rodman, what they allowed that guy to get away with in the 90s.
Oh, in the 80s. I mean, the 80s Oilers, they used to. We had a coach one time. I won't even say it, but the 80s Oilers used to party pretty hard, and it was a different time where you get away with that stuff. And I don't know, guys didn't really train back then. They're smoking darts in between periods. Pounding beer was rehydrating. It was a different time, and I don't know if that justifies it or not.
Yeah.
But I mean, what are you doing where you're at this point in time in the playoffs and everyone has to step in and like put you into rehab? Obviously there's a problem. So his priorities are buggered up. It sucks. And whether he's battling addiction or not, or whether he's just choosing to go party and got caught, I can't say. And I think there is a difference. But nonetheless, the reason you don't do that when you go and party is it does lead to addiction, and that does get you messed up. And it's walking a fine line, and the timing of it is just ridiculous. And with all on the line and how he's playing and where he's at in his life, it's like, Jesus, man, like chill out a little bit. It's you're trying to make it to the Western Conference Finals, and you're partying so hard and doing so much bullshit that the league has to step in. Like, come on,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, it's wild too, because this is the third time it's happened, including the second straight Stanley Cup playoffs, right? Enough is enough. And the big story with this too, they really can't void the contract. Like, I don't know what they do with the contract. I think he's fresh off an 8-year extension or something close to that. I think he's got 6 years left on his deal. Like, this story is not going anywhere. I think he's eligible to be reinstated in November, but you gauge some of the comments from the guys in the room. We talked about the nameplate being off the stall already. I can't see a pathway, never say never, in pro sports where Nichushkin's back in that room. I just can't.
Yeah, you'd think he's burnt the bridges at this point, right? And
Yeah.
again, there's times where this happens and it's like, hey, we support him like crazy and he's battling, he's trying, and it's addiction, and we wish him the best. We support him and we'll welcome back with open arms. That type of thing does happen. But I think there's nuance to it. And then this is a situation where it seems like the guy's just saying, screw it, I'll do what I want, and gets busted and hurts the team, and then does it again and gets busted. And it's not like this guy needs help. It's like he's choosing to say, screw it, I'll do whatever I want, and getting caught for it and just putting himself before the team, which is the vibe that I get after hearing the comments.
Yeah, right away seeing the story, I thought of The Last Dance. I thought of Dennis Rodman. Like, the guy would peel away on a private bird to go to Vegas during like the finals, and he'd come back for the game and he'd win, and then he'd go back to Vegas just on a complete bender of a life. But you're right, a different story, different lifestyle, different era of professional sports. Speaking of which, the Battle of Ontario, we also forget this story. They haven't played since the Morgan Riley cross-check. And speaking of which, the new head coach, Travis Green, who's a former Maple Leaf, will join us in about 20 here.
Yeah, because I want to pick his brain about the process and the behind the scenes type thing. Something that people don't really get access to, and you hear people get hired and whatever else, but like what actually happens in the building, in the rooms and in the offices, and how much time you wait, and what do they tell you, and what happens when you get there, and how often do you move your shit. It's just kind of interesting to pick his brain. So yeah, a guy that played a ton of hockey and now has coached a ton of hockey is getting another crack with the big Canadian outfit.
I like it, and I think obviously you've got to find a correlation. There is one here, being a Leafs podcast. He is a former Toronto Maple Leaf. He knows what it is to be and play in the Battle of Ontario, and I thought it was a perfect guest to try and get on because of the correlation to Toronto right now. Essentially, whoever is brought in to be the next head coach will be going through some of the same type of stuff, right? The draft is coming up. Like, I want to know more what happens behind the scenes. So you're hired. Like, what's the next objective? What's the next piece of business? What do you do leading up to the draft now that you're instilled as the new head coach? And I'm sure whoever gets the job in Toronto will be going through the same thing here.
Yeah, exactly. You're probably chomping at the bit to, address the team and let the team know what direction you want to go and what your philosophy is going to be. Lots of moving parts, and I don't claim to know them all, like upstairs with the coaches and GMs and stuff like that. But no, it'll be I don't know. On one hand, you have a lot of time to prepare and get your ducks in a row, but on the other hand, it's like, oh my god, do you ever have a long wait until training camp? It would be a long, tedious wait while you're chomping at the bit. But a good position for him to be in, and obviously a huge opportunity with one of the rivals of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
It's going to be fun to document with Travis Green coming up in about 20 minutes from now. Should mention our socials as well, at the Golden Muzzy for me. If you want to find Rosie specifically on Twitter, he's outstanding, at J_D_Rosehill. Have any hot takes last night? I didn't see.
No, I was coaching lacrosse. I've been off the Twatsy for a little while. Yeah, I might have to get back on her though. Just been busy,
I thought I saw you made a comment after the Nichushkin news broke. You're like, during the
by
heat
accident.
of the playoffs or something.
I was on a group chat with the Department of Discipline, the other podcast.
Yeah.
And they sent that, and I wrote like something like, good Lord, man, like during a bloody playoff run, what are you doing? And then I was coaching lacrosse, and then and I'm like, why is my Twitter got a bunch of mentions shit? And I look up and I'm like, I tweeted that? Like, what an old man move. I didn't even realize, and I sent it back to Pinder, and then I'm like, fuck, I tweeted that. I meant to respond to you. And he's just like, CTE. So I deleted it just because I didn't know the whole story. I was like, geez, like what a dumb thing to say when the guy might be needing help and stuff like that. And turns out it was probably bang on. But yeah, that was an accidental tweet.
Oh, fair enough. No, I think you're always sensitive in those type of scenarios, but then like the reinforcement after the game, some of the comments, it sounded like he didn't go over the top completely, but he broke some rules. And it screams selfishness. And I think it's such a polarizing story right now. Again, because of the player. We're not talking about a fourth liner. We're talking about a top liner who is on top of his game right now.
Yeah, like was it a piss test or
I don't know.
It kind of seemed like that. I had buddies asking me like, what's the doping thing the rules in the NHL like, and it would be completely random. Like you'd come to the practice rink one day and there'd be a table set up and there'd be two NHL representatives there with all the bottles to piss into. And usually you'd have a good trainer who would you'd wake up and everyone would have a text saying, hey guys, try not to empty your bladder before you come to the rink today, kind of thing. Like wink, wink. But also, like, what are you gonna do? You got to go that day. It's not like you can flush anything if you're doing dumb stuff behind the scenes. But yeah, it's the never ending debate on, like, personal freedoms. Can you do what you want on your own time, or do you got to ban that stuff? And would you need to do drugs? It's just I don't know, just athletes and drugs is a bad look in general. It would be ideal if no one ever did them when you're an athlete and you never had to worry about it. But inevitably, with that many people and that many personalities, there's going to be guys that like to skirt the rules, and obviously Nichushkin's one of them and gets busted. And yeah, to me, it's just I just get the vibe that they're done with him, saying, God damn it, man, like, how bad do you need to go party with people and doing drugs and shit when we're in the middle of this huge monumental run in the playoffs, and you need to, like, to the point where you're getting kicked off the team, dude. It's obviously a problem.
I want to know where it took place. I've heard Dallas is a whale of a time, but I've heard Denver is a whale of a time. So I don't know if it was on home turf, on the road, but maybe we'll never find out that story. At the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. If you're watching right now, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I don't know if you saw this yesterday. We hit 11,000 subscribers. We implored people to subscribe and watch and like, and bam, you guys hit it. So I guess we're now on the road to 12K here.
15, I want to see.
Okay.
By the end of summer.
You better do what Rosie says. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Visit LeafsNation.com. TheLeafsNation.com, once again, for the very latest. I put an article today stemming from our conversation yesterday about 3 trade options in between the pipes for the Maple Leafs, so make sure to go check that out. The opening segment is brought to you by Greta Bar YYZ. For a good time, find Greta, 590 King Street West. Weekly specials, live sports, over 60-plus arcade games. Let the games begin. Go big. Go to Greta Bar YYZ. I wish we had more information.
Living there, man. You guys are just living at Greta now that it's opened, hey?
Maybe once a weekend I'll check it out. Yeah, pop in.
Hope you're not abusing it.
No, definitely not. Went on Friday. Good time. Always have a great time at Greta. So make sure you go check it out. The coaching search, Rosie, not much of new to report. All I'll say, it just seems like one man is earmarked for the job, as we talked about on Monday. I know Todd McLellan has been confirmed to interview for it, but we can tell you that it's only been these two that I've interviewed. Gerard Gallant hasn't interviewed. Bruce Boudreau hasn't interviewed. Everything we know, it's Craig Berube and Todd McLellan, nobody else. So I would think a decision could be coming in the next couple of days here.
Yeah, it's funny how McLennan's like one of the, number 2, you would assume, it's kind of interesting. Not to beat the Quenneville thing to death, but like, if you follow his daughter on Twitter, she's adamant that, the narrative that has been brought up around him, which I think I've mentioned on the show, that is my problem with these things, where there's just a narrative of nastiness, of cancel the guy, of he needs to be punished, his career needs to be over. And like, no one has even like confirmed the narrative. Like, she says that he never gave any letter of recommendation for that video coach to anybody. She said that he was involved in the meeting that was spoken of the incident, and it was not at that point sexual assault at all. And that was as much as Q has been privy to it. And then like 10 years later, he gets like punished and kicked off his job and not instated in the coaching world. And just the whole thing, I'm kind of on her side, man. Like, it seems just weird that it just seems like the cancel culture of the day, and it pisses me off. And I really think he should be one of the front runners and be interviewing and everything else. And fun fact, Kyle Beach said that he has called Q and said, I would like you to coach again. You have my blessing to go coach again. So isn't that all you need to hear? Where some dickhead on Twitter is going off about, how dare you even question that Quenneville should be the coach of the Maple Leafs. He needs to be punished. He should never be in the game again. Are you making light of sexual assault? Where the guy that's involved in the thing is openly saying, no, you have my blessing. I want you to coach again. You deserve to coach again. Who else's opinion do you need besides that? That alone right there should be instant reinstatement from the NHL, if you ask me, for Coach Quenneville, because all these dickheads on Twitter who just love to run their mouth and act like they're higher than me. Oh, look how virtuous I am. Drives me absolutely insane when the guy who's involved in the bloody incident says, no, Coach Q, you deserve to coach again. You have my full blessing. Like, that's all you need to hear. And in my mind, he should be interviewing for that job.
Yeah, and I think it also just reinforces the fact that regardless of what people think they know about anything in life, There's more to the story than what you just see in public or what you think you see in public, right? Even the Kyle Beach thing that we saw from the daughter, like nobody had, public knowledge of that happening. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes that people are not aware of. And I think people are so quick to jump to conclusions in situations like that.
And the people that claim they're the most open-minded and caring and thoughtful people in the world are the most closed-minded and don't think about, what could be, or maybe this isn't true, or we don't have all the facts. It's I heard this thing and all of it's negative and all of it is to tear a person down, and they clamor onto that and hold on tight and just thrash at everything around them that tries to divert from that narrative or ask questions about it. And I just hate those types of people. And it bothers me that they have the control that they do to ruin people's lives.
Meantime, did you see there was a clip of Craig Berube holding his star players accountable in St. Louis that went viral yesterday? Did you check that out? Why don't we play that and then we'll get a reaction to it, okay? So here's the clip of Craig Berube talking about his star players in St. Louis.
Our best players don't play with any passion, no emotion, and no inspiration at all. They don't play inspired hockey. You cannot play in this league without emotion, grit, and being inspired. They're getting paid lots of money, and they're not doing the job. End of story. That's it. That's what it boils down to.
There you have it right there, man. That is refreshing stuff. It is really, really refreshing stuff, and it kind of gets me giddy for if it is Craig Berube, how he deals with the star players on this roster.
Oh, like, are you kidding me? That is just poetry for Leafs fans right now. It's accountability, man. It's just very simple to look at, certain times, not all the time, but the Maple Leafs and the core, and they're not putting the hammer down. They're looking around and they're humming, oh shit, and poor me. And it's just not acceptable. And there's no accountability to say, you're not allowed to do that, dude. The expectations are too high. And if you get to that spot where you're kind of flat and like, maybe things aren't going your way, maybe you're not feeling it, maybe you're not happy with X, Y, or Z, but like the expectations in this organization and in this league is that you're going hammer down all the time. It doesn't matter if you're getting the bounces or not. If you're going through adversity, you have to just even try that much harder and put that much more effort and have that much more level of compete in your game to fix any problems that you're having, just to give yourself a chance every single night. And just based on that right there, Craig Berube demands the exact same thing. And I just think that it's going to be a different culture around there, and certain players are not going to be used to it, and certain players may not be around anymore if they're not the type that would buy into that kind of thing. So that's just music to people's ears in Leafs Nation. And, you should just play that. If he gets hired, just play that clip to introduce him to Leafs Nation. I think that's all you need to do.
I could only wonder how long it would take for Berube to clash or give his opinion on the play of one of his star players. I'd probably give it, 5-7 games before he's like, this is not happening on my watch.
I don't know. You know what? Have you ever thought of the angle of Berube's the coach, Mitch Marner's there to start the season, and the accountability is there, and they have a talk, and he says this is what's expected, and Mitch just starts playing like super hard, balls out, like buying in. That'd be pretty interesting. I'm not sure if he's got it in him, but something to watch for if he transforms his game and starts playing, more of that rugged style of hockey and high compete level hockey. I wonder what the narrative, how fast it could change.
Yeah, that's my fascination too, is like even some of the younger players that have a chance to make this roster. Fraser Minton, Easton Cowan did it again last night. The OHL MVP down 6-2 in the third. They storm back against Oshawa and win that game in double OT, now up 3-0. Again, there's so many different angles you can look at it from Berube. If it is Berube, how he's going to interact with different players at different vintages on this roster, from John Tavares to Mitch Marner to Morgan Riley. Like, there's going to be some changes again. So we're just talking in hypotheticals, but rest assured he's going to deal with some of the bigger guys, period, on this roster.
Yeah, for sure. You look at the different guys that would, welcome that type of mentality and the guys that would shy away from it. And, Easton Cowan is a guy you mentioned that I think he has just exploded in his development. I mean, we saw him at training camp. He was kind of a splashy story for sure, damn near making the team with Minton. A little young, obviously, still young as could be. But, man, the way he's dominating that, you wonder if there's a benefit to him going back there, being that far above everybody else. I could see him making that team, and he seems to play with the level of compete that Berube would appreciate.
I think Cowan's going to get every shot to make the team at a training camp. You need, again, when you're paying these guys, and I know there could be a roster reshuffling, and on top of that, he's the OHL MVP coming off a historic season. He's dominating the postseason. I think he's going to get a legitimate shot. We'll see if he gets to the Memorial Cup, but you need players, making ELCs to make it work, especially when you have one more year of Tavares, potentially one more year of Mitch Marner. There's so many moving pieces, but I think at the very least, Cowan's going to get a significant look to make that roster at a training camp. Frozen pucks are awesome when they're in the back of the other guys' net, but that doesn't mean you'd want to eat one. That's why Wendy's only ever uses fresh Canadian beef that's never seen the inside of a freezer in all of their burgers. Whether you order a Baconator Dave single or even a JBC, you'll only ever find a real fresh beef that's real juicy and loaded with fresh toppings. So download the Wendy's app, check out the latest deals, and order a burger that's only job is being delicious. We got Travis Green coming up in about 5 minutes here, but I wanted to debate something quickly because there seems to be this narrative in Leafs Nation. They're only able to keep one of Domi or Bertuzzi, never mind both. Never say never again with all the moving parts we just referenced. But of the two guys, who would you keep?
I'm on Team Domi, just based on production, based on compete. Like, he was everywhere, man. There was games there in the playoffs where he was our best player. Whether it's face-offs or making plays or getting in the mix and getting in the extracurriculars, finishing his hit, driving the net. Just, he was doing everything. He's got that dog in him that everybody wants in Leafs Nation. Like, the most frustrating thing for Leafs is when guys just are doing nothing. Like, what are you doing tonight? What have you brought to the table? What have you done to help the team win? And sometimes you look at certain players and you're like, zero. And that's never the case with Max Domi. He's always, you just watch him work. You just watch him compete. He'll just do anything. He'll go through a wall to get that puck. Simple as that. And he showed me that he has got what it takes to play in this market. He loves it. I think it's in his blood. You watch the interviews and the side pieces before the games and stuff where he's talking about what it means to be on that team that his dad had such a big impact on. And, it seems like it's home for him. And I think he's willing to do anything to win a Stanley Cup here. And I would get that guy on my roster and lock him up. And like you say, I don't even think he commands as much of a AAV as Bertuzzi would. I'm not knocking Bertuzzi. It just seems like he's a little streakier and goes up and down a little bit. As much as I like him in front of the net, as much chaos and havoc as he did cause, it didn't actually lead to any production in a lot of ways. So just nothing against Bertuzzi. I do like him too, and I wouldn't be against re-signing him if everything lined up properly. But Domi, is the number one in that conversation for me.
To me, it would be Domi as well. I think for the first time in a while, he's found a place that's legitimately home, and it is. But I think even the way he plays, his brand, his style, I think his versatility stands out too when you compare him to Bertuzzi. Like, he can play the wing, he can play up the middle, he can play in the bottom six, he can play in the top six. And I do think that's where the game is trending in general. You need guys like that, Swiss Army knives. And I think Domi's a guy who can bring that. And then everything you just mentioned about the price tag, I think he's going to command less than Tyler Bertuzzi will in the open market, because teams are going to look at Bertuzzi and say, hey, this guy's a power forward. He can play that style, that brand in the playoffs. He can play with some of our heavier guys and our bigger guys in the top six. And it just takes one to be like, we believe in this guy. We're going to pay him $5.5, $6 million per season. And I think when it comes to Domi, I think there's also that attachment of being the guy whose father was a legend for this team. And I think you pull on that a bit when you talk contract with him.
Yeah, I know. It just seems like all the ducks are in a row for them to extend this guy and make him a Leaf for a considerable amount of time. I do think it seems like he's found a home. I don't really know why he's bounced around the way he has. Seems like everyone likes him. He's very likable. He works hard. He puts the team first. There's nothing you could call to him on why you'd not really be interested in having him in your franchise. So the way he works, his toughness factor, his compete level, and then his skill as well, and versatility, come on. He was the one guy that stood out in that series for me as being a guy who was 100% committed to doing what it took.
And credit to producer Vic, put out the poll here on YouTube at the Leafs Nation 401, where you can subscribe, at the Leafs Nation 401, where you can subscribe. Hit that like button as well. If the Leafs can only keep one, who do you prefer? 88%, a resounding 88% through about 60 votes, saying Max Domi, 11% now saying Tyler Bertuzzi. So I think that is the consensus out there, but that's taking nothing away from Bertuzzi. Rosie, I don't know if you agree. If you can make it work and you bring both these guys back, I'd be more than happy as well.
Yeah, I think so, depending on what the other options are and where you're sitting. But no, like I said, nothing against Bert at all. He has the potential to be really good. And going into his second year, maybe there's less, feeling out period and trying to figure out where you fit and what it's like. And I could see him maybe fitting in with the new coaching staff better and just having more of a, just a better fit, I think. And I wouldn't be against it either. It depends on the numbers and who's where and how far apart they are and what term he's looking at, all that stuff that gets a little bit murky. But no, I don't have anything against Bertuzzi. I think he showed up at certain points in time. My only knock would be he can be a little bit hot and cold, it seems like, in his time in Toronto.
Man, it's wild to me where you look at the first half of the season to the second half, how the narratives and the thought process change on both players, right? It went from these guys can't play. Why did they go out and get these guys? So you get to the playoffs, you're like, the analytics community, the calculator community is like, wow. They're trying to figure out different numbers that don't make it apply. Like it really showed you that you need that type of player to be successful. Now, ultimately, they lose in 7 games, but man, were they way more difficult to play against in the postseason.
Yeah, they were. And I think they're going to continue building towards that. I think they've figured it out, the Dubas plan. I think Dubas was too inexperienced and didn't understand the difference in playoff hockey and built his team he built it well for the regular season. I mean, they had some really successful seasons with players having personal success, but in the playoffs is a different beast. And I would rather, get in as, third seed or whatever in your conference and or in your division into the playoffs than win it and get smoked in the playoffs. And I'd rather be a little bit lower and, have a team that's more suited for the playoffs. It's very black and white. And I think, this year was very clear on the differences in that, and the guys that don't perform in the playoffs. It's obvious to see who they are and what they're doing.
It is for sure. This interview is brought to you by Douglas, named Canada's best mattress on Canadian living. Douglas is loved by more than 200,000 Canadians, and they're backed by over 10,000 5-star reviews. Every mattress order comes with a free comfort sleep bundle, 2 memory foam pillows with pillow protectors, 1 luxurious cotton sheet set, and 1 mattress protector. Order today at douglas.ca/LMT. It's douglas.ca/LMT as we bring in the newest head coach of the Ottawa Senators. It is Travis Green. Greeny, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Hey, good, guys. How you doing?
Fantastic. First off, congratulations. Can you tell us a bit about how the process went down here?
Thanks. But, I'm excited for the job, for the opportunity. Like anything, there is a bit of a lengthy process to getting a job and both sides settling in that it's right, a good fit for both sides. And I'd say that Steve and I went back and forth for probably 2 to 3 weeks, I guess. And, eventually they told me that they'd made their decision and they wanted me to be their next coach. And through that process, I went from getting to know them and then getting really excited and hoping that I was the guy that they chose. And obviously here we are today.
Greener, what's obviously you got some time until training camp. You're chomping at the bit, I'm sure. But what's going to be the first opportunity you get to address the team as a whole? I imagine it won't be till training camp, but are you going to get to talk to some other players that are sticking around and try to start the wheels in motion a little bit early?
For sure. I've reached out just over the course of the last 4 or 5 days here. I'm slowly going through the lineup, reaching out to guys individually. I've probably hit half the team, and I'll hit the rest of them probably in the next 2 days. I'm a big believer in getting it going right away and starting that, relationship building. Rather than waiting to training camp to address the team. I will talk to every player periodically as we get going Right now, it's just about introductions, getting to know the people, the players, the staff, you know, what they're all about, not just in hockey, but in their lives, what they enjoy, what they do, where they live. I'm going to take some time and watch some of our team game, and then get back to players as far as what I see in their game, and talk to them what they feel their strengths and weaknesses are, and how they can get better over the summer, which is an important time for every team to get better, especially with a young group and you've got young players. It's a little different when you're talking about players that have been in the league for 5, 10, 12 years, 15 years, where they know what they are. I believe our group can use time in the summer to really improve their game as well.
Greeny, can you just try to put the mic a bit closer? We're just hearing a bit of an in and out echo here.
Yeah,
but I want to get your, pardon me?
Is that better?
Yeah, way better, bud. Thanks for that.
Okay.
Wanted to get your thoughts on the Battle of Ontario, man. I think this is so cool when I saw the news go down that obviously you've been on the Maple Leafs end, but now you're on the Ottawa end. How excited are you for that?
Yeah, I am. It's you go back, back to when I played against the Senators. It was obviously a huge rivalry back then. Two teams in the same province, both passionate fan base, and hopefully we can get that back. And part of that rivalry was both teams being good and being in the playoffs. To have a rivalry, the game's got to be meaningful. And remembering back, there was nothing more meaningful than some of the playoffs that we had, especially when you go in 7 games and they get heated, and that's a big part of rivalries, is both teams competing for the same thing.
Greener, obviously the next thing for a team that's not in the playoffs right now is the draft coming up. How involved do you get as a coach as far as the direction you want to go, your philosophy, and then who you're looking to add to your organization, even at that level? Do you get to have a chance to be involved in some way, or do you kind of stay away from that and just focus on the team they hand you?
Yeah, I think it's when you talk about the draft, you're talking about players that are, they're a ways away, if we're being honest, from playing in the NHL, and I think it's real important in organizations that you've got really good people that do great work, and the scouts, the amateur scouts, they work so hard and grind so hard throughout the season for the draft that I think it'd be unfair for a coach to come in and start analyzing players that he's never seen, doesn't know much about. I think then you start stepping outside your lane a little bit, and it'd be like the scout coming up to me and talking about the power play when he hasn't been to practice or anything like that. So I think it's important that you just hire really good people to do great work, have trust in them, and that's really the amateur scouting department. And and I've got faith in everything I've seen so far. I've got a lot of faith in every part of the Ottawa Senators right now with what Steve and Michael are trying to do.
Greeny, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Morgan Riley situation. These two teams haven't played since it went down. Do you think animosity could carry over from season to season here? And how do you view the play?
From the outside looking in, it's different when you're not there, and you're worrying about your own team. You're coaching your own team, and you've got a young player that's ultra competitive. If you're on one bench, you're probably trying not to smile a little bit, and if you're on the other bench, you're probably a little bit upset. But this is a game of hockey, and there is a lot of emotions on the ice, and guys, there's a lot at stake, and you want ultra competitive people, and sometimes ultra competitive players do things that cross the line, and I am never going to take a young player's competitiveness away from him. I think you've seen it throughout the league. You've seen championship teams that have highly competitive people that do things that other teams don't like. And yet they still mature as they go on in their career, and that's part of the game. Those emotions. and yet you're still working with players to control their emotions. That's probably the best way I can answer it.
No, I think you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. We're looking forward to that matchup. Just got to ask, like, where the hell are you? People in the chat are just going wild with the sounds behind you.
Yeah, no, I'm just sitting in my office, to be honest.
Oh, okay. There's like a technical glitch. It sounds like you're at a pig farm.
Yeah, well, I'm not a big pig farmer, but you guys might have to upgrade your system then.
I think so. I think you're right, bud. We'll leave you on that. I was laughing too. Like Brady Tkachuk wants to go at the Worlds, man. That you must be jacked up to be coaching that guy too. Like that's the prototype. If I'm building an NHL player, it's probably Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be, again, when you're talking about, what you like about an organization, what attracts you to an organization, he's one of those things. There's a lot of great young talent on that team. I do believe to win in the playoffs, you need to be ultra competitive.
I think we lost you. I think we lost him. Okay, we'll leave it at that with Travis Green. Appreciate his time here on the show. The new head coach of the Ottawa Senators. Looking forward to that, man. The guy was an absolute legend when he played for the Leafs, and now he's going to be on the other side. You can't forget the whole Morgan Rally thing too, right?
Yeah, I know. There's it's the Battle of Ontario, and I think I downplayed it a little bit. Just depends what era you're in, but when they get competitive and when you have a Brady Tkachuk on the other side, you don't want to get bested by them, and especially in your own rink. And I think that especially after the Morgan Riley thing, you could get that rivalry become as heated as ever here. So I'm looking forward to that on the calendar next year.
Certainly. Greeny said he can walk outside. Do you want to try him again?
I think it's the system, man. It sounds like there's an exorcism happening in the background.
He says my reception is not great at my house. I can walk outside. Do you want it or no?
I think it sounds a little bit too mangled, and everything we wanted. I think he hammered on. We know where he's at and where his head's at.
Yeah, sounds good. But yeah, I think in general, I'd love to get your thoughts on just the division, right? Because I think that's lost in the shuffle. Yeah, the Maple Leafs are going to be a much different team, but it's going to be a battle. You got Montreal getting better. You got Detroit getting better. You got the Ottawa Senators, the new head coach. They're going to make some changes here. To think the Leafs are just going to walk into things, I think is the wrong way to approach things here.
Yeah, if it's almost lucky that right now there's kind of been some rebuilding and some restructuring going on in some of those teams that are below the Leafs in the standings at this point in time. And that's a good thing when you're talking about Boston and Florida and Tampa and what they've been doing to that division in a long time. But it's not going to get any easier. There's nothing about the NHL that's easy. There's never a free pass. There's never, there's never anything given to you. So like you say, those teams below are rebuilding and are going to be good. And, teams like the Senators are building around a Brady Tkachuk. He just has Nathan McKinnon vibes to me with even more toughness and more grit. It's wild. So, look out. You got to be paying attention and building your team and staying on top of things and always be getting better, or you will be left in the dust, and that division is no exception.
Man, that was great. That was an all-timer. We've done some really funny interviews on this show, but like people were trying to break us in the chat, and I broke at one point, and I had to make a comment. I'm like, is this guy at a pig farm somewhere?
I was wondering if everyone else could hear what I was hearing, because sometimes things just get blurred. But technology, man, I don't know. I thought there was an exorcism going on behind with like a demon or something like that.
Yeah, it was like the demons of playoffs past where Ottawa couldn't beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's what it sounded like.
Wow, shots fired. He's not even on anymore.
Hey, I just got you see this report? MLSE beginning next phase of Scotiabank Arena's $350 million reimagination today. All comers to get a physical and tech facelift. Venue will remain open at full capacity for all scheduled events. This via Lance Hornby.
Nice. Yeah, that's good, man. Well, I know when they built that arena, I think just the Raptors were going to be in it, and then they decided to shove the Leafs in, or maybe it was vice versa.
Yeah.
But they kind of screwed it up a little bit in some ways. There's some weird parts of the of the dressing room and stuff that could get changed. I'm not sure if that's part of it, but I mean, with the money that MLSE has, that building being, a staple right downtown Toronto there, they're going to keep up with it, obviously. And I remember when MSG, Madison Square Garden, had their reno, they didn't really have a press box. Like, it's an old building. Ollie and Fraser fought in that thing, and they didn't have a press box. You were kind of like sitting amongst the crowd almost, and then they put $1 billion into it, and it didn't really look that much different, but they got like a mezzanine, press box up there.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy what they can do these days. But yeah, as long as they keep updating that building, it'll stay at the forefront. And I hope they can do something about the acoustics in there and make it a little bit louder. But it's all about multi-purpose venues and concerts and all that bullshit. So it's unfortunate, but we'll see. It's good to hear they're throwing some money into it, though.
Yeah, maybe they hired a couple more sous chefs. Possibility too. But I watched the playoff hockey, and I know maybe it's different acoustics, but watching specifically that Vancouver-Edmonton series, like, I couldn't even hear, and I'm in Toronto. I would just love a barn where it's hard to play against if you're the opponent. And I watched Scotiabank Arena, and I give the crowd credit. They were better in that series, but it is night and day when you watch some of these other barns in the NHL, especially now in the playoffs where you need your crowd more than ever, and they rise up to the occasion. Different feel. I've watched a lot of games in different buildings. You've played in a lot of buildings. Just a different feel at Scotiabank Arena. And I think you're so right. The in-house entertainment needs to change. That's where you start.
So like the promo team and
all that shit, the music, all the stuff that place will put you to bed, man. I don't like the excuse because I go to a Raptors game and that's one of the best crowds in the league, and then I go to a Leafs game and it's like one of the worst crowds in the league. So
there's your kicker right there, is the fact that it is loud for the Raps, eh?
It is.
Well, first things first, let's get a team that's winning, that's inspiring, that's getting you out of your seat, and we'll see what happens. I mean, you get that team into the Eastern Conference Finals, and I think things will change in a hurry. But we've gone over what the problems are with the building, and I've always thought that when you're in there in person, it's more electric. There is an electricity around it. I mean, it's the Leafs. It's always full of people. No matter what you do, you put 20,000 people in a small area, it's going to have some electricity to it. I always thought it was better than it came off on TV, but that's a good point that the Raptors, game is rocking and loud. It's possible in that building, obviously.
Younger crowd, as producer Vic points out in our group chat here, for Raptors games. I get that. And the demographic for Leafs games is slightly different. But I'm not giving the crowd a pass in Toronto. I mean, we've had this conversation so many times. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. A couple games coming up tonight. The Boston Bruins down 3-1 in their series with Florida. No Brad Marchand, just confirmed. Do you think Florida ends it tonight, Rosie?
No Brad Marchand is confirmed.
Confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, that fourth one is the hardest to win. There's no question about it. They're going back to Florida, though, right?
Yeah.
It's I just think they're, God, are they nasty, man. There's just no passengers on that team. They're all in. They know what they're doing, and they do it with confidence. And they honestly make the Bruins look pretty average, to be honest with you. I do think they'll get it done, even though that fourth one is the hardest to give. But I think they're too banged up, and the Bruins are, once they're bitching and whining, and the biggest clips coming out of their camp is complaining and whining, you kind of know mentally they're defeated. So I think they're gonna take it to them and get the series wrapped up tonight.
And then Vancouver at Edmonton. Cal Pickard's going for Edmonton, which is unbelievable to me. You're hanging your season on a guy who started the year in the American Hockey League, but then you look at Aiden Hill, wins a cup last year, so I get that. I'm forecasting a prototypical McDavid game. I don't know if you caught this yesterday. He took the high road. He didn't really comment much. He just said, hey, it's a hard-fought playoff series. And I think the way he was treated after game 3, he's the type of guy that's going to be like, you know what? I'm going to put up like 4 points in game 4. I think the Oilers win. I think McDavid has a monster night. I would look at the over 6.5. If you can believe it, we got 2 guys who are third-string goalies to start the season playing here in game 4 of the second round. It's insane to me.
I know, it's funny how that keeps happening. Like, not second string, third string, and fourth string guys, and Aiden Hill, and what happened when they lost Demko in Vancouver there. That's one thing, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't mind that. So over 6.5, I like that. I could see the Oilers tying the series up. I hope they do anyway. They're kind of who I'm pulling for in the West, but I don't know. I just think I think, well, Carolina made a little bit of a push last night too.
Yeah.
Big third period. I just think I think it's going to be Florida, New York in the Eastern final. And it's almost like unfortunate that a team has to lose that, because I think those are the two biggest horses in the league. I know Dallas is making some noise, but it'll be interesting to see here. It's kind of coming down to, it's starting to shape up on who's left over. And it's a lot of the big boy teams that we thought would have success in the playoffs.
Man, that's exactly it. Like the Dallas Stars watching last night. I know we talked about Colorado and the issues surrounding that team, but man, oh man, Wyatt Johnston's on a different planet. He just turned 21 today. Watch that guy play hockey. You're like, oh my goodness, how is he not making Team Canada next year? And then you look at the complement of other guys. Like you have Tyler Seguin and Matt Duchene as like tertiary options on your roster. We haven't even mentioned Hintz and Robertson and Faxa. I mean, Heiskanen on the back end, Harley on the back end. Then you got Ottinger. Like they're poised to do something special. But as you just referenced, there's like 3 or 4 or 5 really, really good juggernaut teams remaining. And this is getting good. And then you compare them to the Maple Leafs. That's why I think it's night and day. But looking forward to seeing what transpires over the next couple of days. And maybe we get some news over the next 24 hours and the next head coach of the Maple Leafs here.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know how big of a rush they're in or what, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of saying, yeah, let me know when you figure it out. It seems like they got a lot of time, but I know people have other options. There's other teams, but if you look at the other teams that are available to have a coaching position, they don't really compare to the Toronto Maple Leafs as far as prestige and big timiness. So I don't think they're at risk of losing someone to the San Jose Sharks that would otherwise have potentially been the coach of the Leafs. So I think that's kind of why they're taking their time, making sure they do it right.
Yeah, just seeing a tweet from Frank Saravalli. I know he put this out earlier today on Morning Cup of Hockey, but he says that it sounds like Craig Berube is scheduled to be in Winnipeg today to interview with the Go Jets Go, the Winnipeg Jets. I think that makes a lot of sense. I still think Scott Arniel is going to be the guy in Winnipeg, considering the job he did when Bonus was out tending, obviously, to his wife for a good chunk of the season. I think it's going to be Arniel's job, and I think Winnipeg's doing its due diligence. And you can't forget, too, like there's a bit of a contract game, negotiation game going back and forth, the Leafs and Craig Berube. I think ultimately that's where he lands, but that's the very latest, Rosie. So we'll reconvene coming up on Wednesday, I guess.
I like it. We'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully, maybe we'll see if we have some big news.
Yes, and our thanks to Travis Green, the new head coach of the Ottawa Senators, for dropping by, even though we can confirm he was not at a pig farm, but some abnormal sounds coming from his cell phone, potentially our system, potentially his system, but very, very appreciative of his time. And so Jack for Greeny. I mean, the list is getting longer and longer of like the Leafs Morning Take Touch. You come on our show, all of a sudden you're getting a prolific job in the NHL. So keep them coming. Thank you to everybody in the chat. You guys are great. As per usual at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com for the very latest on all things Toronto Maple Leafs. Thank you to producer Vic. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk on Wednesday. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.